Hello and welcome. This is Rooflemonger, and today, my friends, in this video, I want to talk about the Grappler, perhaps the most understated and humble of all the fighting game archetypes. The Grappler is definitely very divisive, as people, well, frankly, hate grapplers. This certainly is no recent trend. This has been the case for many years, despite the fact, generally speaking, of all the archetypes in fighting games, the Grappler tends to be overall, well, frankly, the worst, the lowest tier of all the archetypes. They still garner perhaps the most amount of hate. And unlike, say, another hated archetype, zoning, which has kind of gone away for the most part in modern fighting games, grapplers are still around and they're still making people scared. So, well, let's talk about it. The idea for this video comes up from simply, if you were aware of the recent Guilty Gear Strive beta, Potemkin, the big boy grappler, he was nerfed and nerfed pretty hard due to a lot of complaints. And heck, Zangief in Street Fighter V very recently got nerfed as well. He is basically the face of the archetype. He is what grappling is. He is grappling 101, right? You might have dinosaurs grappling too, as you can see here, but in the end, Zangief is the face that runs the place. So with two very high profile grappling characters nerfed very recently, a lot of people are like, well, glad. They're very happy for the nerfs. They're very happy to see this kind of character knock down a peg. So what is it exactly that elicits such fear and hatred for so many players? Because I just see this kind of stuff all the time. Now, one thing I guess you could argue is kind of like an animal level instinct thing is the Grappler is simply bigger than most other characters. They take up a bigger portion of the screen for the most part, not every single character, but most of them. They're like Zangief. They're just a big wall of muscle, and they're usually a lot bigger than the character you're playing. And keeping with that purely visual feedback, a lot of grappler characters, they basically, well, disrespect you. You say playing XYZ rushdown character, you're doing a bunch of like elegant combos and all that kind of stuff. And when the grappler does the grappler thing, you're just getting squished like a pancake. You had to work so hard to get done whatever you need to do, and the grappler just turns your bones into dust instead, right? So perhaps on that level visually, it seems less fair. It seems like you have to work a lot harder for whatever you're going to do, and the grappler just goes LOL and slams you to the ground. Now, of course, once again, that's purely visual feedback. Obviously, there's a lot of gameplay ramifications as well. One of the core aspects of the gameplay is there's two kinds of grappler players. There is the kind of grappler player that will play as slow can be, and that's usually dictated due to the moveset the characters have. It doesn't benefit them to go too fast. Or conversely, you get the grappler player even with these limitations, they know and they're just going to throw themselves at you. They have no respect for themselves or God, and they'll repent in church come Sunday instead. And this kind of all or nothing approach can really mess with people. For the extra slow grappler player, a lot of people overall, I would say they favor aggression, right? And when you fight that overly slow player, the grappler who just kind of will just play buttons all day long and wait for that one opportunity, you can crack because you don't want to play slow. You want things to move forward, and eventually you moving forward maybe a little bit too much is exactly what gets you put into the spin cycle, and then you're not too happy. And the flip, as this is one of the most famous examples of this in fighting game history, this match right here. When you're fighting the character and you're mentally screaming, no, you're not allowed to keep coming at me like this, but you are. So therefore, you're quote-unquote not playing by the rules, as it were, and it can just mentally mess with you. And in this extreme case example here, Evil Ryu is a lower health character, T-Hawk is a higher health character, so T-Hawk is allowed to make more mistakes. He's allowed to play sloppier because each mistake will hurt him less, and then he can go for very bold plays like that. And that's one of my favorite moments in fighting game history, just so you know, that is amazing. But because you're the lower health character, your opportunity to make a mistake versus the grappler is lower than, say, an average character as well. Because, to be frank, very few archetypes, very few kind of characters in fighting games can make you feel stupid like a grappler did. Like, you always feel bad for making a wrong decision, sure, but making the wrong decision against the grappler and then put into that big animation where they're just spinning you around and slamming you to the ground, that just makes you feel extra dumb. And feeling dumb in a fighting game, well, it's not a good feeling, especially when your crime is simply, say, blocking, which is something you have to do in a fighting game, but a grappler will punish you for being passive in a way other archetypes cannot. Generally speaking, in most fighting games, the worst you'll eat for being a little bit too passive is the stock throw. But the problem with the grappler is they got a lot better than the stock throw, so for you just being passive, even for a split second, the punishment you eat is a lot worse than in any other kind of character matchup. And perhaps that is potentially it right there. The fact that this whole archetype is based around that exact concept, which is already, not a great feeling, being punished for being a little bit passive, and then they double down on this fact because they're going to be doing a lot more damage than anyone else in that same scenario. Like, say, using a Street Fighter example, how smart do you feel whenever you eat, like, the empty jump Raging Demon? Not very smart, right? Haha, they got you. But that's, like, every scenario for a grappler. Empty jump supers, dash into nothing into command grab, just a lot of dumb plays just to get you to block for a split second, make you think you're doing the right thing, and then turns out you didn't. So that's two aspects to look at, right? Both visually, animation-wise, just the feedback you get, and also in gameplay terms, the kind of feel-bad scenario options. Grapplers, that's what the whole game plan is built around, is enforcing those feel-bad scenarios for you, because that's how they win. And since that's the game plan, it can be frustrating, right? Grapplers make you feel, well, stupid more than any other character. They will make you second guess everything you do more than pretty much any other kind of archetype of fighting game character. And this is less gameplay, but I guess more mental. But in my experience and my time and all that, I find that grapplers as an archetype, generally speaking, and I don't mean this in a truly negative connotation, but like they're the scrub killer, right? I find it's easier to bully mid-level players with a grappler easier than any kind of other character. Like, if you're against a zoner, maybe the concepts of how to work your way in. If you're against rushdown, you can learn how to block. But so much of what the grappler game plan is truly a mindset, is truly a battle of mental wills. And for a lot of players, until you really get into like the minutia how the game works, you might understand the mechanics just fine, but certain scenarios that might be incredibly dangerous grappler-wise may kind of go over your head until you get a lot of games under your belt. And the grappler, if you don't know the tricks, if you don't know the setups, you're in for a rough time. So that's just some of my thoughts on the matter, and if you watching at home, you hate grapplers, you hate that dirty Zangief, that dirty T-Hawk, Potemkin, you want him to go to jail, let me know what you think. Why exactly do you not like the grappler, right? What exactly about the grappler just cheeses you off? I sincerely want to know your opinion on the matter. The grappler is a time-honored archetype. It's been there since the beginning, since Street Fighter 2, since this whole crazy fighting game craze took off, right? But it's always been a little bit reviled, a little bit hated, and perhaps we need to come to a better understanding why that is exactly. So my friends, please let me know in the comments below, and otherwise, I guess that's the end of this video. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well. Go out and play some fighting games.